Right, so given that it's the weekend, something I brought up yesterday, the governments aren't updating the numbers anymore apparently, so no number update will be updates on Monday apparently. No numbers out of the states either, probably because the 4th of July. Um, so no, I'm not really going to talk about that. I'm just kind of going to get right into some topics here. The first one being this started New Year up, them saying UNICEF warns 2.4 million children in Yemen could starve due to shortfalls in humanitarian aid funding amid the pandemic. Again, this is something that I warned about like literally 2 months ago. I remember a story coming out like right at the start of May or right at the end of April, about how I think it was the UN thought that upwards of 100 million people could starve because of the shutdowns. And the reason that's so significant is we shut things down because we wanted to save lives apparently. But the problem that I pointed out is that, I mean, I've been pointing out for 3 months now, is that we're doing more harm than good by shutting things down. And not only are we doing more harm than good, we're doing a lot more harm than good. And that's the big problem when it comes to this kind of stuff is why in the world do the very small amount of lives that are affected here in Canada trump the massive amounts of lives that are being affected in other areas? Like again, I think that all lives should matter pretty much equally, but yet we are shutting things down under the guise of maybe saving. I don't think we're saving anyone, frankly, but um, even if you want to think that the lockdowns are saving lives, we're talking maybe 1,000 lives in Canada, maybe 10,000 in the States. I mean, you think that that trumps the 2.4 million children that could starve? Now, there's other reasons. There's other things that go into this as well. There's the fact that it's a war torn country, partially due to terrible Western foreign policy, um, but that's something that's not a huge factor when it comes to this. But the big problem being is that yeah, we should be doing this kind of stuff, and the problem is that the money's not available, and not only that too, a lot of it's just we're not allowed to do this kind of stuff because if we do, we're told that the virus is going to spread and it's going to kill everyone, and that's the big problem when it comes to this is that um, and again, I think the big problem, getting to that is the pro lockdown crowd and the pro lockdown group thinks that there's no downside I mean, the downside they think is, oh well, boo hoo, you don't get a haircut, you don't get to go to the gym, you don't get to go to the movies or go out for supper. That's what they think that the only downside is, which I think is a lot more of a downside than they think. But even if you want to agree with what they're saying. Um, the problem is that that's not the only downside. The downside is not only the suicide, the drug addiction, the alcohol addiction, or abuse, at the very least, the disposal, the child abuse, the depression, all those negative ramifications, which I think outweigh the negative ramifications of the virus by a lot, even before you account for that. But then you have to account for stuff like this: the fact that millions of people are going to starve because of the lockdowns again. So just remind all, I mean, most people watching this, in fact, the vast majority probably don't support the lockdowns, but I'm sure you know people that do. So whenever they bring up how virtuous they are because they saved a handful of lives by supporting the lockdown, just point this kind of stuff out. Again, this is something that went viral about a week ago, and it's a cop on TikTok. Now, this isn't the video that went viral. The one that really went viral had like millions of views and had like 50,000 retweets. But it was of this cop who made a short video talking about how, I don't know if it was him specifically or his department, um, that the the defund the police protest crowd wanted a police security detail at their protests again, which just makes no sense whatsoever for obvious reasons. That again, if you want to defund the police, then why in the world do you want police security details at your protest. Again, it just goes to show that these people don't actually believe what they believe. The real goal is to destroy the current system and just rebuild it the way they want it. The reality is that they don't want to defund the police. They don't want to do any of this kind of stuff. The reality is they want to destroy the current system and replace it with how they want things to be run. Again, this is the problem too, that all the same problems that they claim to, again, look at the CHOP or the Chaz. Again, they're, oh, police brutality is so bad, even though the de facto police of the area were going around beating people on a regular basis. I mean, they beat up a preacher, they beat up multiple reporters. I mean, multiple people were killed, people were raped. Again, so all the problems that they claim to be against were just as bad or worse in their area. So again, it's not that they're anti-police brutality. It's just they're very pro-police brutality. Just when their group is the ones administering the brutality, basically. Um, so anyway, again, this is another big thing that came out. It actually came out a while ago, but I mean, it's back in the news because I think the trial's happening or something like that. But children right, and I would add in this guy was pretty high up in the UN as well. Children rights activist Peter Newell jailed for abuse. Um, Again, or maybe more charges were brought against him, but nonetheless, again, this guy was one of the top UN, children rights activists. Again, when he's turning around and you know um, abusing children. So again, this is just more evidence that the UN should be defunded. I mean, the left constantly complains about corporate greed and politicians, spending money on holidays. When you look at these UN summits and whatnot, there are people that are, these guys are spending, massive amounts on hotels and dinners, and they have little. I mean, there's another story of these UN workers that were literally buying prostitutes, like with like UN money and on UN time. Again, so it's an organization that's corrupt to all ends. The reason that the left wants it is that the left wants a government that is as big and centralized as powerful, and the reason that the right doesn't want it is they want a more decentralized government. Again, it has nothing to do with any moral or ethical. I mean, on the right it does, any moral or ethical principles. It has surely to do with the fact that the left wants a big and centralized government as possible. So that's the real reason that they want it. Again, this is just more hypocrisy. And again, if you don't follow Mark Dice, make sure you check him out. He's very good for this kind of stuff. But anyway, I mean, I posted about this or talked about this stuff ad nauseum, but it's very boring at this point. But again, I wanted to keep pointing it out because it's something I talk about a lot. So there was a big Pride celebration in Chicago on June 28th, and Mark Dice responds by saying, "So virus only infects straight people, or pro-gun rallies or anti-lockdown protests or non-leftist causes protests and Trump rallies." Again, it just goes to show that we'll literally go. When Trump wanted to have a rally, which only had like 6 or 7 thousand people, it wasn't even that big of a rally. It was the worst thing in the world, and there's massive amounts of spread that's going to come from this. But people can mass gathering for Black Lives Matter, for these pride parades. And again, I'm not against pride parades, but the point being is that if one group of people should be able to congregate, then every group of people should be able to congregate. That's the problem, is the sheer and utter hypocrisy. So um, like I say, there's endless examples of this, but again, I'm going to keep pointing it out because it's so obvious at this point. um, the last thing I wanted to talk about is something that I've brought up, but again, I wanted to talk about it again because it's pretty important. In that um, Human Rights Watch, or one of these groups, is like, bring home suspected ISIS fighters, kids from Syria, group challenges Canada. Again, where are we at as a society where this is even a question? Like, if this is even a question, like, just imagine if, like, literal, like, Nazi groups existed in a foreign country, and um, and people wanted to, and let's just say whatever war is over, they wanted to come back because they didn't like it or whatever, And just imagine if the conservatives were arguing that we should bring those people back. They would be vilified. They would be raked over the coals. It would be the biggest story in the news. Oh, the conservatives and the Nazis, they're one and of the same. But yet the liberals want to bring, and the NDP too, I think, they want to bring back the people that are arguably the most um, deranged and far out there that literally exist, and yet you're mocked for criticizing that. Like, these are people who kill gays. These are people who treat women as second-class citizens. Again, the left is so big on homophobia and LGBT rights and sexism, but yet they could not care less when it comes to the group of people that are literally the most sexist and the most anti-LGBT. Again, if you're if you think the gender pay gap is fake, then you are the worst sexist in the world. But if you literally want to treat women as second class citizens, you don't think that they should be able to show any of their skin in public. You don't think they should be able to drive. You think that they literally basically exist to have kids and that's it. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And the reason, again, the reason that the left is perfectly fine with this stuff is that the leftist political position is we don't care what you believe as long as you agree with us politically. If you vote for us politically, we will defend you no matter what um, beliefs you have when it comes to sexism or LGBT or whatever. We will defend you no matter what, no matter how crazy. I mean, ISIS is literally like the most crazy group of people that exist in the world, but yet the left defends them. For the simple reason that they vote for the left overwhelmingly. Again, if you're a moderate conservative, you're the worst person in the world, and we don't want you here. But if you're an ISIS fighter and you killed gays and you literally killed people, for no good reason, then you're perfectly fine. Come on in. Again, it's just how crazy the left is. So just wanted to point, and just how crazy these media outlets are for promoting this garbage. So um, anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, as always, check me out on PayPal. Not check me out there. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on BitChute. Check me out on Parlay. Again, all those links are in the description. Make sure you check them out.